Alright guys, so I wanted to do another video on Shenmue. Oh, it's so nice to be able to talk about that game again legitimately with some real news. Shenmue HD is getting released. Fucking hell, that was, yeah, really unexpected. I said in my last video that it came like a bolt from the blue, no word at all. And what I meant there was officially. Officially, Sega had said nothing on it. There had been a couple of little clues along the way. A couple of leaks here and there and hints that this might happen, but nothing official. And now it finally is. Yeah, and I just hope that it comes out a good few months before Shenmue 3. You know, I want to have time to sit there and have time for people to come to it and play it and love it and get invested in the story. But it's a hard sell. It is a hard sell. This game, when it first came out in 1999, was groundbreaking. It was actually one of the very first 3D open world games. This came out before Grand Theft Auto 3, which of course we all kind of see as really the first big, or the first notable open world 3D polygon game. Shenmue was there before it, and it was so refined. To say it's such an early example of an open world 3D game, it does things that even today a lot of games don't do. One of those things is to have a realistic day-night cycle, and time being a very integral part of the gameplay. You have to go and be places at certain times, certain places at certain times. You got to meet people at certain times, you know, and if you get there too early, then you're just going to have to find something else to do and fill in your time until it gets to the time you're supposed to be at the right place. Like if you're going to meet somebody, or if you've got an appointment, or if there's some event happening. If you miss it, then you're going to have to spend the rest of the day doing other stuff and try again the next day, that kind of thing. So it has this day-night cycle, this sense of time that really adds to the immersion of being in this game world, you know. Again, yeah, it certainly was easier to impress us with that type of immersion back then, you know. So it's a hard sell these days. It's not going to blow the socks off people in the same way that it did back then, of course, because gaming's moved on, technology's moved on, and especially since it's not getting a full remaster. It's just going to be, you know, a slightly graphically tweaked version of the game, basically to make sure the resolution's fine on modern TVs. But the game's going to look pretty much exactly the same as it did, save for a new user interface. So yeah, this in certain ways it's going to find it more difficult to bowl people over like it did me and a lot of people back in the day. But I still think that the experience of this game is solid enough and unique enough that it's going to make people fall in love with it, even though by today's standards it's not, you know, groundbreaking. Yeah, like I said, the way that the game kind of draws you into the atmosphere, and it is a slower paced game. That's another thing that makes this kind of a hard sell, is because we're used to these crash bang wall up games, something happening every 2 seconds, you know. This game is certainly a lot more slower paced. It feels more mature for it as well. You know, there's certainly a lot of philosophy that runs through the game, so, you know, it certainly feels like a directorial decision to have this kind of more calm pace through the majority of the game. There are of course action sequences, and there's actually combat in the game that's really good. The combat is really quite well implemented. Of course, this game Shenmue started off as a Virtua Fighter RPG. That's what Yu Suzuki planned originally, is to bring the Virtua Fighter franchise into this huge epic adventure. And it was called Virtua Fighter RPG when it was getting developed initially. Initially on the Saturn, actually, there's actually still some footage out there of the original Saturn version, but the project became too big and Dreamcast came along and it got moved to the Dreamcast and had its own identity after that, before that even. But yeah, so great combat, some fun action sequences, but for the most part it's kind of an investigation game, kind of a life sim mixed in with investigation, you know, exploration, it slows it down. You've got to be ready for the fact that it's a slower pace than a lot of the games that you're used to these days. But if you're looking for something that is a bit unique, that has some character, that has a bit of depth, maybe you do like a bit of philosophy in your games, you know, then this is for you, I think, you know. I think it will appeal to a lot of people. And I hope it does well, of course I hope it does well, because then it's going to mean Shenmue 3 can sell better, and like I said in the previous video, that means we might get Shenmue 4 and 5 to complete the saga. But this, yeah, I mean, I got obviously both the Dreamcast versions, games, but you know, the reason this game didn't do well back in the day, apart from it being, you know, a bit of a hard sell, a bit more mature in content, a bit slower paced, you know, those made it hard sell to a certain demographic, certainly a younger demographic. But on top of that, the second one didn't even get released in America. So Sega's biggest market for the Dreamcast didn't even release the sequel in America. The only place you can legitimately get an American version of this game was on the original Xbox. And I said before, yeah, this was used as a make-weight when Peter Green went over from Sega to Microsoft and stole a lot of the licenses, and most famously this one, and most infamously this one. Yeah. So American fans of Shenmue had to import it from the EU, and yeah. So basically, what I'm getting at is the game tanked. It cost so much to produce. You know, they had to develop their own unique engine for it. By games of that time's standard, this budget was huge. Even by today's standards, it's a big budget. But yeah, having said that, they did create an engine from scratch for it, and there was various other costs that went into it. I've talked about that in previous videos. But yeah, the game didn't do well, and it didn't make its money back, and that is why Sega didn't want to fund a third game. But it's unfortunate, you know, and Sega's not the company they used to be anyway. You know, would they be able? Well, imagine they're making Yakuza, or they're just producing it. I don't know how it works anymore. Yakuza's got the Sega logo on the box, and that's a pretty damn accomplished modern game. So maybe they could have been able to do it, but they just didn't have the wherewithal to do it. They didn't feel like it was going to make them any money. They don't have to worry about that anymore, because releasing those two games as a box set without any real major improvements is going to be so cheap for them to do. But let's see how it goes. Let's see. There's certainly some quite well-known influencers, as they're called these days, influencers, who are big fans of Shenmue. So obviously Adam Koralik, Happy Console Gamer is another one. There are some very well-known gamers that will advocate for this game, and let's see what happens when new gamers come to it and see what they make of it. I'll be intrigued to see what they actually think of it in you know, in light of the 15 or so years that have gone past since they came out. Have they aged well? We will see. You know, I think there is a market for a slower paced game. I mean, we're seeing the emergence of a new genre in the last several years called the walking sim. Dear Esther is one of the standout examples, and you're basically just walking around a pretty location, letting a story develop. In Dear Esther's case, you're listening to a narrative. So there is a market there for the slower paced game, the more kind of cerebral adventure game. And it makes a nice change, I think, you know. I think people do, you get bored of just hack and slash formulaic games. This certainly feels unique. As I said, still does things that new games still don't do, and like the time cycle, a really involved time cycle. And it's that kind of thing that gives it its depth. You know, the interaction with the characters is great as well. You know, the cheesy voice acting just adds to that. It kind of feels like Existence. In fact, when Existence came out, which I believe was after Shenmue, someone's going to put me right on that, but I certainly played Shenmue before I saw Existenz. And Existenz really reminds me of Shenmue. When they're talking to those characters that go into loops and they have those slightly hammy deliveries. It reminded me so much of Shenmue. But it's full of character, and yeah, I just hope it does well. And like I said, there's a lot of people that I know that never got around to this game back in the day, and now they'll be able to do it more conveniently, and I hope that they do see what I saw in it. I'm certainly going to be playing them again. I certainly want to go through these games. I was going to go through them again anyway in the lead up to the third one getting released, but now of course I'll be able to do that on the new re-releases, and hopefully, like I said, the save data will be transferable across to the new Shenmue, so that'll be really good. So I'll definitely be playing through them again. It's nice to have that extra reason to do so now. So there's been a few more details come out as well, if you might already know them if you've been following the news, but yeah, apparently in the PS4 and Xbox One version you're going to get a poster for free in the box. There's going to be no collector's edition, unfortunately. As far as the updates go to the game, yeah, like I said, you're going to get a new user interface. There's also going to be a new control method. Because remember, the first one, in fact, well, yeah, these of course came out on Dreamcast, that only had one thumbstick. Imagine that! One thumbstick! I still to this day think that might have been the primary reason for the Dreamcast's death, early death. It only lasted a couple of years, maybe 3 years, and it was held back by the fact that it didn't have that second thumbstick. Of course, PlayStation 2 came out and just killed it, and it, you know, DualShock with two thumbsticks just opened up a whole new realm of game control and being able to navigate through 3D worlds. One thumbstick just, it was awkward. You know, it was a little bit awkward getting used to controlling Ryu in Shenmue. Second nature, obviously, once you're used to it, but compared to the dual thumbsticks controls, you know, some people might struggle. So, to account for that, they're going to add a modern controls option. So you're going to be able to play it like the original, using one thumbstick and buttons, or with two thumbsticks. So, yeah, let's see how that goes. That's cool. What else was there? 30 quid, that's the price. It's going to be $30 in America. I don't know if that translates to 30 quid, but if it does, that's fine. 30 quid for both games in one release is pretty good. I'm happy with that. Yeah, that's it. I mean, man, this has been going on for years. They've had, you know, the Shenmue community, they set up Facebook pages, they had Twitter storms, organised, you know, regularly to try and get Save Shenmue trending as a hashtag, and many other efforts were made as well. And yeah, it did kind of feel like it was knocking on an empty house for a while, so they just weren't giving any official line on it. But it's actually worked, and it's really cool to see that fan power, fan passion can do something like this. So first of all, the fact that it got Shenmue 3 kickstarted, and as a result of that buzz, Sega have obviously seen a continued desire to see the old games re-released. And yeah, it's easy money for them, so it was a no-brainer, really. But it certainly must have been, they certainly must have been genied on by that continued passion from the fans to, you know, we weren't content with just Shenmue 3 being in the works. We didn't stop there. We carried on with this Save Shenmue hashtag and drive to try and get the originals put out again, because there's so many people that just didn't get a chance to play them. So yeah, like I said, it's a hard sell. They're going to look ropey compared to modern releases, so you might, you know, people have to kind of take that into account. I don't know what percentage of the gaming world will even care enough to give you some leeway over how it looks, because they're not going to look as nice as your modern games. But I think that once given a chance, you know, I think it'll win a lot of people over. It will, just for the uniqueness of it. That slower pace is intoxicating, you know. Again, I have to admit, of course, I'm coloured by bias and nostalgia here. when I recall Shenmue and my emotions around it, it's obviously linked to when I first played it back in the day, when it was breaking new ground, and when it was so much more impressive than other 3D games or games in general at the time. So I have to keep myself in check there a little bit. We shall see how it is received by new gamers, and yeah, I just hope it does well. And it's so nice to see it back. So that's it. Everyone go home. Shenmue saved. Close the Facebook groups. Stop the Twitter hashtags. It's done. It's amazing to see that fan passion can do this. Yeah, companies will listen eventually. What else needs saving? What else needs saving? There's got to be something else that needs bringing back. We need a proper Shadowrun remake is what we need. A proper Shadowrun remake and maybe even sequel. That was a fantastic game. Anyway, that's it, guys. Shenmue's coming. Really happy about that. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.